Have you ever found yourself as a passenger or an observer of somebody using their phone when driving? And even more than that, if they're actually using their phone and they're doing things like Snapchat, or they're on Periscope or Facebook Live or one of those other many live video platforms. That's what we're going to be talking about today here on Talking Social Business. My name is Krishna, and I'm delighted that you're able to be with me here today for this particular live stream, which is really all about two key things that are going on at the moment. Firstly, the fact that actually tomorrow is Don't Stream and Drive Day. That's the second year of Don't Stream and Drive Day, and we're actually going to be talking all about that to the person who instigated it, and we'll bring him on in just a moment. The other thing is, you probably can hear from my accent that I've got a UK accent, and I was born and brought up in the UK. And like many people, we travel through the UK, or we might be accompanying people through the UK. So if you're in Ireland, or perhaps you're watching today and you're actually in the UK yourself. The other thing that's happened is, as of today, there has been a change in legislation that you need to know about if you're driving in the UK. So consider today's Talking Social Business a bit of a public safety and a public services announcement. And that's what we've got in store for you. So we're not going to be talking about marketing very much, other than how this particular campaign, which is Don't Stream and Drive, is actually being using this whole area of live video in terms of promoting it. So, with no more to do on terms of the scene setting, thank you so much for joining me here for this special episode of Talking Social Business. I'm going to introduce you now to a friend of mine. In fact, I got to know of him through Periscope. And this is, in fact, 2 years this month, in about 23 days' time. From memory, I think it's the 23rd of March 2015 that I did my first live stream on Periscope on the day it launched. And soon after that, got to know Neil. Neil, thank you so much for being here. You've got a very busy day, because I know lots is going on in your kind of whole world orientation, because you're a sergeant in the UK police force. And perhaps you can actually tell us a little bit about your role, and then we'll go into what's changing today in the UK, but importantly, the initiative that you started called Don't Stream and Drive Day.
Well, hi, good afternoon, Krishna. Good afternoon, everybody that's listening, and those that catch up later. Who am I? Well, as you've said, Krishna, I'm Neil Jewson-Smith. I'm a real social media geek, really, and I'm a real proponent for the use of social media by the police to sort of build and engage with our communities and try and make a difference on digital platforms. And you've said I'm a serving police officer. I am. I'm a sergeant. I'm with the Cheshire Constabulary in the UK. And although they're very supportive of a lot of the stuff that I do, I'm not here speaking on their behalf today. This is all about the work that I've been doing on Don't Stream and Drive, which I've led through social media and Twitter. My background, really, I've got 26 years complete service now. I've got just under 4 years to go before I retire. And across that service, I've done the sort of day-to-day policing duties that you'd expect of every constable. And then I worked on traffic policing, road policing for 7 years. And that was with Greater Manchester Police before I transferred to Cheshire. Since I've been with Cheshire, I've spent 7 years in the custody environment as a custody sergeant. I was promoted when I came into Cheshire. And then I currently work in the force control room. So I'm deploying resources, or my staff are deploying resources to incidents, and I'm managing incidents and looking at threat, harm, risk, and all those issues. So across those 26 years, as far as road safety and Don't Stream and Drive is concerned, is that I have seen every aspect of this process now, from the first call coming in that the call takers that work with me now take to say there's been an accident at this location or there's been a collision, can somebody come, to the other end where I've turned up in the police car with the blue flashing lights and then prosecuted the offender and ended up in court with the suspect. So I've seen the whole breadth right the way through. And that's me with the police.
So, Neil, when we got to know each other, you had actually started using live streaming yourself. We got to know each other through your use of Periscope. So perhaps you can give a little bit of a context about what you use live video for, and specifically Periscope, because I know that's where you've been particularly active.
Okay. I had no idea what live streaming video was. There's an awful lot of people are the same. And it was Periscope was brought to my attention by a gentleman by the name of Nick Keane, who is the works for the College of Policing and is the digital engagement lead and advisor for the College of Policing. And he asked a question on a forum that I'm part of, where he said, "Has anybody seen Periscope, and are they using it, and what do they think of it?" And being naturally inquisitive to this kind of stuff, I thought, well, what's Periscope? I have no idea what they're talking about. So I went and looked, and my eyes were suddenly open to this amazing world of live stream video. I thought, oh, there's absolutely loads that I can do with this. It's going to be great fun, both on a personal basis and sharing information and being more visible on social media in a different way. But I also saw great opportunities for the police to use that in their day-to-day work, i.e., they're at the scene of a collision and this is where we're at, or look at the traffic behind me, it's all queued up, don't come this way. There, or the more formal press sort of style releases where it's a talking head outside the front of headquarters saying we're dealing with this incident and a general update. So I saw great opportunities for that. And so I started to use it from both perspectives. I used it personally on my own Periscope account, but I also started to use it on the work account and started to try and encourage people at work to see some of the benefits of what we can do with live video. As it stands in force, it's not just my force, but it's an awful lot of, it's all the other forces around the country, is that there are a number of considerations that they have to take into account before they start broadcasting live that I, as an individual, don't need to really worry about. So they're very cautious with it, but we have used it and we have had some good success from it. Nothing shout out and shout from the rooftops sort of amazing success. Not in the same light as Baltimore and the like. However, personally, it's been a great tool for me to use for anything that I'm doing through Twitter and social media, especially Don't Stream and Drive. It's been a massively powerful tool for me.
And I know you've actually joined us previously on my weekly show, Live Stream Insiders, as have some of your colleagues in the US, around that whole area about how live video is being used by the police force. So firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us here, and particularly those of you who've shared the content already, because this is a really important public services announcement. It is no marketing going on here today in terms of from selling anything other than helping you, your family, your friends, your colleagues, and your community stay safe. So if you care about that, then please share. And if you know my live streams, you know I rarely ask for you to share. This is such an important message that I want you to share today. If you care, as I said, about your friends, your family, your colleagues, your community. So let's turn to why you've been particularly busy today. And in fact, your colleagues are very busy today in the UK, because there's a change that's happening as of today, the 1st of March 2017. So perhaps, Neil, you can talk us through that.
Certainly. The change today is the UK government have announced a change in the legislation for mobile phone use by drivers in England, Wales and Scotland. And the change is, in very simple terms, is for normal car drivers, the offence, which previously carried 3 penalty points and a £100 fine, with also the possibility of sometimes there was a possibility of taking a course instead, like a speed awareness course. You go for a phone awareness course. That has now changed, where the penalty is doubled. So the fine is now £200 and the penalty is 6 points. And for a lot of forces, my force in particular, our chief constable has come out and said we will not be offering any sort of remedial courses So if you're found to be using your phone that fits the offence where you're handheld, well, then you will get a ticket and or go to court. The implications of this for UK drivers are quite obvious, because once you've received 12 penalty points on your driving licence, well, then your licence is revoked. And so it's going to be a two-step hit for drivers using their phones, and they'll find that they're off the road. For drivers with less than 2 years driving experience, if they gain 6 penalty points on their licence within the first 2 years, their licence again is automatically revoked. So for new drivers, one hit, licence revoked, they've got to go through the whole process again. So the impact of it could be quite severe for those who choose to ignore this change in their legislation.
Why don't you tell people about some of the initiatives that have been going on around this? Because I've been following your Twitter account, and you've been sharing a lot of content, and I've got some of those images that are coming up. So one of the things I've noticed is there have been insurance companies, there have obviously been people involved from a road safety perspective, there have been other forces, such as your own police force, have been sharing this. There have been other non-profit organizations who care about road safety. So I've got a few images that I'm going to share. So maybe you can tell people what's been going on about that before we move into the other part of today's stream, which is all about the initiative that takes place tomorrow.
Yeah. It's surprising once you start looking into this and start delving deeper into it. It's surprising how many organizations and individual groups of people are actually all out there campaigning for safer roads. And tragically, there's a lot of people that are doing this because they've suffered at the hands of this sort of behavior. But the image you've got there, Aviva Insurance have always been very good at promoting safer driving, and they've been very keen to get behind Don't Stream and Drive and help with some of the issues around distracted driving. But there are road safety charities, Brake Charity, the Road Safety GB, and every police force around the country today will be pushing information out about the penalty changes and the fact that officers around the country on road policing and ordinary day-to-day officers, not just road policing, will be out looking for people using their phones to try and enforce this legislation and drive it back home. But lots of organisations are joining and have got a passion for road safety. The AA, I've put a tweet out today. The AA have released a video which is absolutely brilliant, that sort of demonstrates, because the point of their video is the fact that if you're using a mobile phone handheld or even hands-free sometimes while driving, you are distracted more than you would be if you would, or impaired more than you would be if you were drink driving. And so the video plays on that fact and swaps over the person who's driving using the phone and says, you shouldn't be driving while you're doing that. So they swap seats, and the person who's in the passenger seat, who's absolutely legless, really, really drunk, gets in the driving seat. The nonsense of it is obvious, but it really does well to drive home that issue that people don't often sort of comprehend of the dangers of using a phone. And of course, the RAC have done something too. So we've got the two major sort of road recovery companies, breakdown recovery companies in the UK, sort of joining. They've not joined forces, but they're all behind this legislation and trying to promote driver safety and tackling distracted driving. And they've set up the Be Phone Smart website where people can take a pledge and make a promise to they're not going to engage in this behaviour and then share it with their friends. So there's an awful lot of work going on right across the country.
So thank you if you've just joined us here. This is Talking Social Business. My name is Krishna Day. Today I'm actually with Sergeant TCS. That's CGT TCS, as you would know him on Twitter. And Neil is the person behind that avatar. Neil and I have known each other for almost 2 years. We got to know each other through Periscope, which, as I said at the beginning of today's stream, is almost 2 years old. And there are two things we're talking about today. Firstly, we're talking about the fact that if you are in the UK, if you are travelling to the UK and you're driving, there's some important legislation that has changed as of today. So you need to know about that. But even more importantly, for the context of this stream, is that one of the things that we've talked about before on the show of Live Stream Insiders, which I host every week, and Neil has been with us in terms of to talk about this previously, is the fact that actually people are using their mobile phone, and not just to pick up their phone, or perhaps they've even got it on something that's holding it there for them, but they are sharing video content. And that video content could be as close to live in terms of, let's say, Snapchat. It could be that they're doing things like FaceTiming. They could be using Periscope now, or one of the other many mobile apps that are available for live video. Or they could be using tools like Periscope, as Neil and I got to know each other from. And let me just show you this image, because you might say, Krishna, they don't do that. Who on earth would live stream and drive? So I'm going to show you an image, which is, I'm not going to tell you who it was from, but this was somebody who I know in my network. And this was 24 hours ago. And I didn't catch the stream live, but this is the replay. And what you can see on your screen is I've blurred out the name of the person, hopefully, that was commenting there on the stream. But if you know the infrastructure and the design of Periscope, you will very clearly see that I'm so many minutes through watching that, 7 minutes through watching that live stream on the replay. You can see there's the retweet button there, or share button. There's the pause button and so on. I took that screenshot of that person who was driving on a road, and they also shared their face as well. And I actually am not going to tell you who it is. And that live stream actually has been taken down now, because I went and checked their account, so it's not available. But this is happening. As of last week, let me tell you what I saw. I saw somebody who, again, I don't happen to know, and I need to be careful because the world is very small. One of the things that happened is I actually came across an event that was going on, and I thought, that looks really interesting. I might book a ticket. And I went and had a look at this, and perhaps you've seen this kind of thing as well, Neil. You go and you say, let me find out a bit more about the people behind it, or the people who are speaking at it. Well, in this case, I want to know more behind the person who's actually organising this event. And so I went over and I looked at their Facebook account. And what did I see on Facebook but a portrait live stream? Yes, they were streaming from their car. And actually just over their shoulder, you could see their toddler who was in a car seat. And they were driving. And that stream went on for about 22 minutes. And they started off the stream. I'm going to come to this topic in a moment, Neil, and you can tell us whether this is safe or not. Because today we're talking about, in the UK, it's changed that you have to have your phone. You can't hold your phone. But in this particular case, this person didn't happen to be in the UK. And the country they were in, it was probably okay for them to actually have their phone on a device. But they started off their stream and talked about the fact that they started the stream in that way. But they were completely safe, they said, because their phone was actually in a holder. And they went on and they said, actually, this is just like having a friend in the car and chatting. Their toddler was over their shoulder. And one of the things that they went on to do is they drove for about 20 minutes. And they didn't just chat, they were educating people on their specific topic. And for my mind, if I'm educating and I'm talking to you and I'm running this stream today, Neil, I have to concentrate on what I'm talking about to you. And I'm concentrating on the comments or anybody who's here. And I want to acknowledge the people who've taken time out to be with us here today. But I can't concentrate on that. And then let's say my daughter comes in from the side in terms of asking for attention if she walked through the door. Well, she wouldn't, because she's at school and I'm in the office. But you know what I mean, right? So other things go around. So for my mind, if I'm educating people, I have to pay attention to that person that I'm educating, all those people if it's on a live video. And also, I also walked away thinking, I wonder if that shows a little bit of disrespect, also not only for a family, but actually a bit of disrespect for the audience. Because, if you are concentrating on driving and you are talking away, you're not going to pay attention to comments, which is one of the things that we need to do, which is why I keep turning to the side to watch out for any comments. So what's the situation in terms of, from a legislative perspective? And then let's come to a personal common sense perspective. The fact that person, in fact, both of those people had something that held their phone, and one of them did turn their phone once or twice during the course of their live stream. One was on Periscope, one was on Facebook Live. Doesn't really matter what the platform is. Was that a safe thing for them to be doing? And was it and in terms of under legislation, let's take the UK first. Is that something they could be doing?
Was it a safe thing to be doing? Absolutely not. And I think it's really important just to point out that the fact that you've just had a quick look onto your Periscope page and had a look and found somebody doing this really quickly, and you've found someone on Facebook doing it really quickly. I regularly will go into Periscope and Twitter and just have a look and see what I can find. And I spent 10 minutes on my break at work the other day and just had a quick look. And within a very short space of time, I got 3 people, all in the UK, all streaming and driving. And that's just the stuff that's public, because there's also going to be stuff that's private. So it's far more, we're only scratching the surface, and it'll be far more widespread across the countless platforms that people are using than appears on the surface. And so is it an offence? Well, obviously the straightforward one, if you're holding the phone in your hand, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, yes, it is an offence, and it will carry the penalty that's increased today. If you're not holding the phone and the phone is in a cradle, well, then it becomes a little bit more complicated over here in England, Scotland and Wales, because the offence revolves around the phone being handheld. There are all sorts of arguments about whether, if you're touching buttons and interfering with the screen, whether you're actually holding the phone for that short space of time while the actual interaction with it takes place. Some people may actually sort of grab hold of the phone and press the buttons while they're doing it. Are they holding it? Yes, they are. But it's not as clear set as actually just physically having the phone in your hand while you do something. But from a legislative point of view, and one of the things that I've always said with people is that they say, well, I wasn't holding my phone, therefore I'm okay. And you say, well, no, you're not, because there are other offences that the police can look at. And those other offences might be not being in proper control of a motor vehicle, driving without due care and attention. And that goes right through in steps to the very end of the scale, where we say we've got causing death by dangerous driving. We think of Thomas Croker and that case that came up last year, which was just awful. Basically, your driving is impaired as much or more than it would be if you were at the drink drive limit in the UK of 80 milligrams in blood. So if you're using a phone while driving. And so on that basis, it is dangerous and your driving is impaired. And so if your driving falls below the standards that are required of drivers, you start to fall into these more serious offences that can lead to bigger fines, bigger point penalties, ultimately prison sentences.
And what about in terms of in other markets? What would you advise people watching today? Because people might watch today live or on replay, and they're not based in the UK.
When you say other markets, what are you referring to?
Other countries, as in they could be in Ireland, they could be in France, they could be in the US or Canada.
Okay. Following the sort of the sort of questions and theme that you sent through to me, I started having a look around the globe at different sort of penalty options. It's not always very easy to find. The Irish setup is similar but slightly different. I also had a look at California, where the use of the phone handheld is also an offence, and they also work on a points system. But it's slightly different to the way that the UK operates, and that you can, if you acquire a certain amount of points within a 12-month period, you might end up with a disqualification for a time. But then if you build up and then scale them down again, so there's all sorts of ways. It's a very similar setup, but the nuances are quite different and unique to each country. In Australia, I think they call them demerit points. So it's quite an interesting research at all the differences. But my key driver, because obviously social media is global, it's not just the campaign and everything I do is not solely UK based. It's primarily in the UK because that's where I am and that's where my colleagues who help support the campaign and the likes of yourself, Krishna and Peter and so on, that push that message out. So it's primarily here, but it does reach into other countries and it reaches into America and Canada, and that's because the mechanics of it, the nuts and bolts, are that cars, phones and drivers do not mix, and it's distracted driving. And whatever the legislation and the nuances are, if you're distracted driving, you're putting yourself, but every other road user at risk. And so that's an international, I can't even think of the word, internationally recognised area of concern, absolutely.
Yeah. So I actually want to give a big shout out to Sharon, who commented here. And so thank you, Sharon, for watching this stream. She says, I don't think people realise that they are driving a potential killing machine. We feel that we can multitask most other things as well as we can just multitask driving and live streaming. The problem is we don't think about what we're doing, and we don't think we are invincible. And we think we are invincible, I should say.
Yeah.
And she says, great live stream for this public announcement. It is a public services announcement. Let's get on to why you've decided to create this hashtag and when it originated, because this is the second year of this has been around, and a day dedicated to the message of Don't Stream and Drive. And I have to say, I did get involved in a campaign after your day, Don't Stream and Drive, if I remember rightly, which was, I can't remember the exact date of the other event, but actually it was Snapchat got involved in also trying to do this last year as well. So I don't know where it originates, just between you and I, Neil, because I'm sure Snapchat aren't listening. I'm sure you inspired them too. Because there have been a lot of people you and I have shared privately, because we don't always want to confront people, and it's really challenging. It's different. You're in a position of authority as somebody in the police force. I'm a friend or a colleague to somebody. It's quite hard to go to somebody and say, oh, I don't know if I like you doing that. I have done that, and I wouldn't do that typically publicly. I have done it privately. And because of course people will come back and give you all those reasons why they think it's okay. But it is quite a courageous thing to do. And I think, therefore, you've given us an opportunity to do this in a way that actually we get behind a campaign, and it perhaps is not as problematic as being confrontational if not every one of us want to do it. So tell us about how Don't Stream and Drive, the hashtag, came about, the idea for the day, and also we're going to talk about how you can get involved and how you can help share this message tomorrow, the 2nd of March.
Yeah. I think, first of all, if I was responsible in any way whatsoever of influencing Snapchat, or if there's anybody from Snapchat watching, please let me know, because it's a huge feather in my cap. But maybe, who knows? But the campaign came about because, as we discussed earlier, about how Periscope was drawn to my attention, and I saw some great potential and how I could have some great fun with that. And the more I immersed myself into the live stream community and Periscope, I started to see that people were using it while they were behind the wheel. And my road policing head immediately went on, and I looked and I thought, this is crazy. This is absolutely nuts. People are going to kill themselves or seriously injure themselves or others. And I started to just sort of look and think, well, how can I deal with this? Because you can deal with things and do traditional sort of campaigns and try and raise awareness of stuff. And I thought, well, this is a social media platform, and so it's the community that I need to address. And so the best place to address that community is through that platform. And so I started to look at what I could do, and I started to inject comments into people's broadcasts and just say, why are you driving? Do you understand how dangerous it is? That within a very, very short space of time, that stopped, because I suddenly realized, I thought, what if they read my comment and then something happens because it's my comment that's distracted them? So that stopped. The fortunate thing with Periscope, not in all cases, but in most cases, it links up with Twitter and the same account names, so you can go and find the person on Twitter and then challenge them then via Twitter and not through the live broadcast. So I started to challenge people through Twitter and just sort of say, that's your broadcast. Do you understand how dangerous it is? Do you realize, what you were doing? And that started to develop. I had, in fact, the very first person that I called out and challenged was in Florida somewhere. He was driving. I called him out, and a short time later, he ran a broadcast on Periscope. And he was sat outside a coffee shop, and he says, I'm here having coffee outside this coffee shop in Florida. He says, and I've just been called out for streaming and driving on that last broadcast by a policeman in the UK. And you know what? He is absolutely right. And he went on to say that he would never do it again. And that was a huge boon. Since then, I've had a whole range of colourful replies from no response at all to all sorts of suggestions as to what I should do in my parenthood and what you'd expect from people who are challenged about their behaviour, who don't take too well to that. I think there's a fine line between bullying somebody and sort of trying to embarrass them completely. So I do it discreetly. I don't sort of broadcast out to everybody, but I do challenge people. If they take it on board, great. If they don't, well, then they don't, and I just leave it and let it go. And as I did more and more of that, I thought, I need to do something to sort of consolidate all this into something that's meaningful. And so the Don't Stream and Drive hashtag came about. That propelled things a little bit further and gave it a nucleus to sort of center around. And as I increased the engagement with that, it was a no-brainer really that I needed an awareness day that was completely focused on the issue of live streaming and driving, and that was Don't Stream and Drive. That was on April the 8th in 2016, which ran. And with the support of the National Police Chiefs Council, there's a slide on the screen there, with the support of the National Police Chiefs Council, Chief Constable Suzette Davenport, the NPCC road policing lead over here in England, and the support of the Think campaign and my own force, who haven't sort of stopped this from going ahead, the Don't Stream and Drive Day is running again tomorrow. No audio.
Actually, how you can get involved. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Tony, who's dialing in. This is a truly international live stream, because Tony, I know, is watching, I think from memory, is in China. So Periscope should have, I guess you made a book on drivers scoping too, in terms of stopping them doing so. So this is truly, truly international that people do it. So let's talk about a couple of things that you think we can do to practically get behind this. Because as I said before, if we care about our friends, our family, our colleagues, our community, then this is something that I think we can get behind. And you've given us a couple of ways. One of them is about using our own social networks to share messages. And actually, I want to come on to a specific thing that people can sign up to as well. So if you're just joining us here, I'm actually with Sergeant TCS, SGT TCS. You'll find him on Twitter. Neil and I got to know each other about 2 years ago, almost a few months off 2 years, because we both started to use live streaming on mobile with Periscope. Some of us were using other tools before that, but I was using Periscope, and that's how I got to meet Neil. Neil's been very good in terms of dedicating some time to the live stream insiders and joining us previously to talk about this kind of campaign. Tomorrow is the second anniversary. If you've just joined us, also what we've talked about is the fact that today in the UK, if you happen to drive in the UK, you need to be aware that legislation has changed. But today we're talking specifically around what you can do on the 2nd of March 2017, which is the second anniversary of Don't Stream and Drive Day. And this is about making sure that we share the message, if we care to share this message, all about keeping people safe and not to be streaming. And that could be live streaming on many different platforms. It could be using things like FaceTime. It could be using things like Snapchat. And actually, tomorrow is the opportunity for us to get behind this initiative. Neil has done amazing things, has got so many organizations behind this. Let's talk, though, Neil, about one of the things that you gave us instructions to do from your own live streams and also from your Twitter account is one of the things I saw you talking about is taking some photographs. So tell us about what you want us to do to help share this message tomorrow.
Okay, well, obviously we can talk about the sign-up thing later, but that's a great rallying point in order to get people talking about it in advance of the event. But on the day itself, you need something for people to do in order to give this some traction and get it moving, people have got to have something to do that they can participate in. Last year, we had a pledge. I asked people to sign up, put the hashtag on their hand and take a photograph or whatever it happened to be, and just commit that they were never going to live stream and drive. So I sat thinking about what we could do this year. And this year, if I step back a little bit from it and say that the UK legislation came into play in 2003, and it was completely centred on the fact that hands-free was okay. So if you're hands-free, you're okay. Mobile phones have changed dramatically since 2003. The functionality and interaction you can have with them is massively increased. And so what the legislation didn't focus on, and what I think it really needs to focus on now, is the fact that it's not just about hands-free, because it's so much more than just being hands-free. You've got to have your eyes and your mind on the roads as well, because the loss of one of those critical components could lead to tragedy. And so I thought, well, what we'll do for Don't Stream and Drive Day tomorrow is that I posted a photograph of a photograph I took, and then I cropped it just so it got this sort of letterbox view of my eyes. I said, and I want to fill Twitter with pairs of eyes. I said, if you can't use your own eyes, put stickers through the Twitter app over them, or you don't want to show your face, use some cartoon eyes, or anything you like. It's just let's fill Twitter with pairs of eyes and just use the phrase, my eyes are on the road, not on my phone, and then the Don't Stream and Drive hashtag. And hopefully we can get that message some momentum tomorrow, and it will keep going throughout the day and into the evening, and hopefully Twitter timelines will be full of pairs of eyes that will get people thinking about, why are there so many pairs of eyes on my timeline? What am I looking at? And therefore they can then go and have a look and explore what that's about and learn about the Don't Stream and Drive message. So that's all part of the plan tomorrow, hopefully.
And in fact, one of the things that I did, and you could have some fun with it, this is an image that I took. I happened to be sat stationary at the wheel of the car, and I just actually put up one of the filters. So you could use a Snapchat filter. You could use one of the Facebook Live filters and, put those, fun things across your face. There's loads of them to do. So if you don't want to be just your eyes, as you saw me before, in terms of my eyes and a call to action across it, you could do that. And so that's what I did here. I just put one of the filters there, put the message on top of it, and put a little image filter across the top of it as well. So I think it's a way that we can all get involved in doing this.
Absolutely, and hopefully it's just that way of building up some momentum and letting people get involved in it. So it's not just me spouting all this great information. I want it for people within the community to be able to take part in and be part of.
So we're just about to wrap up now, and one of the things you can tell us about is how to get involved in this event, in terms of also you using a tool called Thunderclap. And so perhaps tell people about how they can do this to get that message out. So one option is take photographs of our faces, of our eyes, with the message above it or below it, whichever. And the other thing is to get involved through this tool called Thunderclap, where you've got a message that's going to go out across anybody's channels who sign up for this. Tell people about this then, Neil.
Okay, the Thunderclap, thank you, is as I said earlier, it's a great rallying point to get people talking about this, and so that I can spend the run up to the event sort of pushing the message and inviting people to sign up and join this. You see, we've got about 23 hours left now. And what the Thunderclap basically does is people sign up with Twitter, Facebook, or Tumblr, and once they've signed up and committed to it, it will send the text out there that's in blue and the link via that platform on your behalf automatically at 12 midday tomorrow. And it's called a Thunderclap because basically there are as you can see at the moment, 3,700,000 people are going to have visibility of that tweet and that hashtag when it goes out from all the accounts that have signed up simultaneously tomorrow. And so people can join that, and that just increases the reach further, which again develops greater awareness of what the campaign's about.
So if you want to check out in terms of in the comments area and also the post of this, you can find the link to the Thunderclap. I should say, if you're watching this and it's after the 2nd of March, you can still do this kind of thing. So you could still do this kind of post. So for example, here's another one from me which is that message is about my eyes are on the road, not on my phone. Hashtag don't stream and drive. Just because it's the 2nd of March tomorrow and tomorrow is the day of the campaign, that doesn't mean that we actually stop talking about this topic. This is something that you'll find that many of us talk about during the course of the year, and I know particularly you do too, Neil. I want to say thank you so much, Neil. You've had such a busy day, lots of things going on in the UK. I've caught up with you in a little bit of your personal time just now. So thank you for being with us to talk about the changes in terms of legislation that's happened here that's happening in the UK as of today, of importance to anybody who actually is driving, not only if you're a resident in the UK, but many of us actually visit the UK and are driving through the UK. We're hiring cars. So you need to be aware of this legislation. And importantly, tomorrow being the 2nd of March, don't stream and drive day. Hashtag don't stream and drive. Go and make sure that you actually check out that hashtag. Neil, tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to talk to you about interviews, if they want to talk to you about, how you can help them in terms of some education, how you can connect them to other people. We've talked about other organizations who are involved in this kind of initiative, including charities as well, really all trying to make sure that we stay safe. And as I said before, staying safe in terms of us being on, in terms of our families, our friends, and also our family members. I think actually we may, there we go. I think I just lost you there momentarily, Neil. But families, friends, communities, colleagues, if we care about this message, how do people get in touch with you, Neil? What's the best way for them to do so?
Best way by far is through Twitter, at Sergeant TCS. If people reach out to me on Twitter and ask for me to sort of contact them privately, I'm more than happy to do so with anything that I can follow through with. But that's definitely the best place to get me for initial contact.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us here for today, the 1st of March, talking about changes in legislation in the UK about driving when you have your mobile phone there. Go back, if you're actually coming into the end of the stream, go back and listen to that earlier part of the live stream. If you care, then please share about this important message. Remember, tomorrow, the 2nd of March, is Don't Stream and Drive Day. 2 calls to action we had for you here. I was with Neil, Sergeant TCS on Twitter, and one of his requests is, if you want to talk about this tomorrow on the 2nd of March, then put out a message there, take a photograph of your eyes. You might do something like, I've got a filter here on this image, or you might do something with a filter, for example, using one of the Instagram filters, the Facebook filters. And the message is, my eyes are on the road, not on my phone. You know what? You can create that today. You can schedule that. You don't even have to be on Twitter to share that message tomorrow, or in fact on other social media platforms. In fact, just share it where you can. If you care, please share. And the hashtag, remember, is Don't Stream and Drive. That's the 2nd of March. We also talked about the Thunderclap campaign, that you can actually schedule something to go out alongside all the other hundreds of people who've actually signed up for that campaign. Thank you so much, Neil, for being with us here in terms of on Talking Social Business. Just 2 things. If you've got questions about how you, like Neil, is using live video for your public announcements and public safety, he's using Periscope. He and I here today are using Facebook Live. If you're not sure about how to get started, you can easily find me. You can schedule a meeting and we can have a chat about what might be the best way for you to get people galvanized and firstly aware of your public announcement and your public safety announcement, as we're doing here, but secondly, how you can get people galvanized about it. And I know that Neil would also welcome you reaching out to him on Twitter and for him to be able to share some of his tips. If you're interested in the topic generally about live video, then every single Sunday at 7 p.m, that's 2 p.m. Eastern time, myself and my co-host Peter Stewart actually are live streaming over at Livestream Insiders on Facebook. You can catch up on the replay. And our goal there is to really advocate for how you can use live video for communications, for events such as this for marketing, for internal communications, and we bring you the latest tools, technologies, and case studies. Our goal is just to help you understand what's going on and what the power is of live video. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you found today's information about the legislation changes in the UK, and particularly in terms of the campaign tomorrow, of interest. And as I said, if you care, please share. Thank you. That's Krishna Day signing out of Talking Social Business.